The road to Alabama's capital would begin with a journey out of Selma across the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It would not be an easy crossing. As plans for the march were set, Alabama Governor George Wallace, an ardent segregationist, issued an order that the marchers not be allowed to leave Selma. As these events unfolded, Reverend James Reed, a 38-year-old white Unitarian minister in Washington, D.C., paid careful attention. On March 7th of 1965, Reverend Reed watched news reports of the march. He was horrified by what he saw. The brutality that ensued came to be known as Bloody Sunday. John Lewis was there.
I can still hear the moans, the groans, and people crying out for help. I was hit in the head by a state trooper with a nightstick. To this day, I don't know how I made it back across that bridge, back through the streets of Selma, back to the little church that we had left from.
Governor Wallace's troopers had beaten the men and women who marched, but they hadn't beaten the movement.
It gave the whole sympathy of the nation to those people who bowed their heads and took the blows.
That really marked the civil rights movement coming of age.
The next day, when Martin Luther King urged ministers throughout America to participate in the Selma campaign, Reverend James Reed was ready to take a stand. He packed his bags for Selma. On March 9th, Reverend Reed and 2,000 others prepared for a second attempt at marching from Selma to Montgomery. But in light of the previous violence, federal judge Frank Johnson ordered the march postponed. King did not want to disobey a federal order and complied, partially. The marchers crossed the bridge, where they were again met by troopers. They then kneeled and a prayer was said. The marchers turned back and dispersed. That evening, after meeting with Dr. King, the marchers left Brown Chapel and dispersed for dinner. Clark Olson was a minister at the time. He'd come to Selma and had dinner with Reverend Reeb and another minister, Orloff Miller. They had no idea this would be Reeb's last supper.
Three of us decided to go have dinner in the Walker Cafe. It was a restaurant that catered to blacks, and that day was especially open to civil rights marchers.
Leaving the restaurant, we turned to the right because it was a shorter distance back to the church. So we walked down here, this short distance toward the end of the block, and it was just about here that we noticed that three white men were coming at us from across the street. And they came up behind us, and one of them carried this club and swung it and hit Jim on the side of the head here, just above the ear. And Jim fell to the ground.
Reeb suffered a massive skull fracture and a blood clot. 2 days later, he died.